Thank you, Madam President. Members, I'm pleased to present Senate Resolution 56, recognizing March 2024 as Women's History Month. SR 56 asks us to acknowledge the contribution of women for 31 days out of the 366 days, remember this is a leap year, which is less than 1/10 of the year, to acknowledge half of our population. Research done by the National Women's History Museum examined the status of women's history in the state-level standards that each of our states develop for social studies. These standards describe what students are expected to know and be able to do at specific stages of their education. The nationwide study found that women's accomplishments, their experiences and their stories, were barely present. And over half of the references to women, and this is in the state standards, so no matter what the level of grade in all different social sciences, more than half of the references to women were regarding our domestic roles. Now, I said our domestic roles. Obviously, domestic roles is not a gender-specific thing. And yet, over half of those references towards women were only about their domestic roles. The analysis found that women were excluded because state standards history framework gives preference to male-oriented exceptional leadership, while overemphasizing women's domestic roles. Why do we need to lift and uplift the accomplishments of women, both past and present? Because we still experience things like last night, the Oscar snub of Greta Gerwig, not being nominated as the Best Director for Barbie. I don't say that just tongue-in-cheek. I'm being quite honest. But why we need to do that uplifting is because each time a girl opens a book and finds a womanless history, she learns that she is worth less. And that is a fact that is played out daily with women. We are underrepresented in positions of power, in business, in government, in academia, in entertainment, you name it. And our being worth less is literally true. White women working full-time year-round are paid 80 cents to the dollar that a man makes. And tomorrow is Equal Pay Day. Black women working full-time year-round are paid 69 cents to that dollar. Latinas working full-time year-round are paid 57 cents. The lower status of women in our society contributes to our high rates of domestic violence, the disparities we experience in healthcare, and it creates the context for our fundamental right to bodily autonomy, a right I think that every single man on this floor doesn't even think about ever being at risk. It sets that context for that fundamental right to bodily autonomy to be so easily stripped. So I thank my colleagues in the Legislative Women's Caucus and others for standing strong and advocating to correct these gender inequities. And as this is my last Women's History Month to stand on this floor, I trust that all of you, but especially my Legislative Women's Caucus colleagues, to continue that fight for equality. Now, in the midst of these very real inequities that I described, we also have some good news. 2023 was a record year for the number of women receiving the Nobel Prize in different categories. Stanford basketball coach Tara Dandavir just last month became the highest game-winning college basketball coach of all time. And Caitlin Clark, that basketball player, she beat Steph Curry in terms of Division I or anybody in Division I points scored in the three-pointers. We also have the first female director, Lori Leshin, of NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory at Caltech. And our own Kamala Harris is the Vice President of the United States, the first female Vice President. And on our floor today, we will be honoring 7 California HERstory makers. There are 8 in your program. 1 was not able to join us. We had others that we wanted to honor, and this is, of course, a representative sample. We had some in Tara Van Devere, for example, because of March Madness, was not able to join us. Lori Leshin, who I mentioned, was also unable to join us today because today is the day the federal government is releasing the budget. She has to pay attention to NASA's budget. We were also regretfully unable to secure Fran Drescher because it's the day after the Oscars, and she said she didn't think she would be quite able to jump on a plane since she'd probably be up all night at the different Oscar parties. But regardless, we know there are many, many other HERstory makers in California, but that is not to in any way lessen the incredible 7 women that we have today as our HERstory makers for their exemplary and trailblazing achievements. And before they get introduced, given my introduction of this resolution, I ask for your aye vote.
Senator Cuevas, Mawid Cuevas.
Thank you, Madam President, and good morning, colleagues. And I rise today on behalf of the California Legislative Black Caucus in support of H.R. 72 that recognizes March 2024 as Women's History Month. As we celebrate women in American history and California history, let us lift up all women of every race, ethnicity, and economic status for their extraordinary resilience and contributions to the strength and soul of this great state. While our struggles for gender equity continues with California women making only a fraction of what men earned, as my good colleague from Berkeley laid out, we must know that women are fighting for and winning on economic empowerment, not just for themselves, but for their family and for future generations. We must acknowledge the courageous journey of women who have fought tirelessly for social change and for activists who march not just for women's rights, but for civil rights, for voting rights, for the demand of the protection of our bodies and the peace and safety of our great country. This fight has been amplified in the voices of women in this country by producing greater representation of women in elected office and in our workforce. In fact, making it possible for me to be the 6th Black woman to ever be elected to the California State Senate. And as the only Black woman in the California State Senate, we still have a long way to go to get not just to parity, but also to equity. It is our great honor to stand in support of this resolution and the Women's Caucus continuing fight to ensure that our voices as women in California are heard. And as we recognize these amazing honorees today, let us all in this chamber remain committed for the rights of all women, for the rights of our women and our daughters in the future, to protect their bodies and their autonomy over their reproductive care, and that we continue to forge these kinds of stories and paths for change with women at the lead. And with that, I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Senator Limon.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. On behalf of the Latino Legislative Caucus, it's my honor to rise to support SR 56. Women's History Month is an important time for us to celebrate and acknowledge the vast contributions women have made to our society and the impact that we continue to have through our cultural, economic, and civic contributions. As a Latina and a member of the Latino Caucus that is now proudly a majority Latina with 9 senators and 12 assembly members, it is important for our caucus to highlight the impact of women, including Latinas, who are part of our everyday lives. There are approximately 7.8 million Latinas in the state of California, which is approximately 20%. We are consumers, business owners, parents, employers, and voters. In California, Latina-owned business has doubled in recent years, providing that Latinas are entrepreneurial and key economic engine in our state. Here in California, we have many Latinas who have become distinguished leaders in their fields and champions of change, including labor leader and civil rights activist Dolores Huerta, State Supreme Court Chief Justice Patricia Guerrero, and famed recording artist and political activist Joan Baez. Nationally, we look up to Latinas such as Justice Sonia Sotomayor, astronaut Ellen Ochoa, and actress Rita Moreno, all who have been trailblazers in their respective fields and continue to inspire generations of Latinas. But over the years, there have also been many inspirational leaders who are often overlooked. The essential workers that keep our economy running, and especially during the pandemic. They ensure that food is on our table, they look after our children, they are teachers in our schools, they create new businesses, and they are part of this state and our country. For all the women with names and high titles and who do the everyday work that contribute to our state, let us remain committed to the change that promotes equity, reduces disparities, and opens doors for all, whether they be political, social, or economic doors. Please join me in supporting SR 56.
Senator Rubio.
Thank you, Madam President. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, today I rise as a member of the California Legislative Jewish Caucus in support of SR 56. Women's History Month is a time for us to reflect on women in our lives and in history that for far too long have been ignored, sidelined, or minimized. Women have been leaders making incredible difference in all of our lives. We need to honor their work, their achievements, and respect their legacies. As we witness attacks upon the bodily autonomy of women and see a growing wave of policies that seek to claw back the strides that have been made towards equality, celebrations like these become even more crucial. We need to continue to emphasize what women have done to move this state and this country forward. This month, we remind ourselves of our history, of times when women have been excluded from the narratives that shape our lives. While Jewish women have long held positions of influence in their own communities, they have also been crucial in the broader fight for women's liberation and equality. 1 week ago today was the first Yahrzeit, or the anniversary of death, of Judith Heumann, a leader in the disability rights movement and a leader in the 1977 takeover of the San Francisco Federal Building. To date, it was the longest sit-in of the federal building. Her actions led to the reenactment of Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, a precursor to the Americans with Disability Act. We celebrate women like Faye Eisenberg Thielove, a doctor of physics who was denied tenure at the University of Pennsylvania despite her qualifications. She fought to become the second tenured woman at the university and is remembered for her fierce advocacy for feminist causes, as well as for her skill and love of teaching. I would also be remiss if I did not pay tribute to the Jewish woman who paved the way for all women to live independently, with the equal legal right to which they are entitled to, and not dependent on potentially abusive partners for survival. Women like Representative Bella Abzug, who wrote the first law banning discrimination against women in obtaining credit, loans, and mortgages. Or Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who across her career ensured the equal rights of women and broke barriers to allow other women to follow suit. I am proud today to stand among my colleagues and urge an aye vote for SR 56 today in honor and remembrance of all our foremothers. Thank you.
Senator Min.
Thank you, Madam President. As Vice Chair of the Asian American and Pacific Islander Legislative Caucus, I'm proud to rise in support of SR 56, which recognizes March 2024 as Women's History Month. This month, we celebrate women for the remarkable accomplishments they've contributed to our state, our nation, and our world's continued progress. Now, this particular recognition began right here in California locally at the Sonoma School District, to reflect on the overlooked achievements of women that have significantly transformed society, and I appreciate the comments from the previous speakers on the many particulars of the contributions that women have made. California is home to over 19 million women who are vital to the successes of our workforce, and by industry, women account for more than half of all workers within, including 74.6% in education and health services, 51.9% in financial activities, and 50.4% in hospitality. Now, within the Asian American and Pacific Islander community, women are pivotal to preserving and promoting our culture and are vital within public service. I want to give particular note to Senator Aisha Wahab, who is the first Afghan-American woman elected to the California State Senate, as well as on the Assembly side, Assembly Member Jasmeet Bains being the first Indian-origin Sikh woman elected, and Assemblywoman Stephanie Nguyen as the first female Vietnamese Democrat elected to that body. These are groundbreaking achievements. I also want to harken back to my own childhood. Growing up in Northern California in the 70s and 80s, I think I internalized the idea that it was normal for women to experience discrimination, for women of color to experience discrimination. My mom was probably the only woman, oftentimes, in the semiconductor industry in different boardrooms, the only woman of color, the only Asian American. And growing up, I think I thought that was normal, and I didn't realize the extent to which she was a groundbreaker. All these people that we're recognizing today are groundbreakers. So I'm proud that our caucus, the Asian American and Pacific Islander Legislative Caucus, can proudly join the Women's Caucus in celebrating Women's History Month and the Women's Trailblazers in California State. And I ask that you join me in supporting SR 56.
Senator Wahab.
Thank you. I rise in support of Senate Resolution 56, Women's History Month. All the women in this chamber, we stand on the shoulders of every woman who has come before us. Every woman around the world who looked around their conditions and thought, we deserve so much better. There is a history of cultures that centered women as the leaders and caretakers of their societies, so the idea of women as leaders is not new. It has just been washed over by histories that want to portray women as weak and timid. So today, I thank those women for creating a legacy of strength, persistence, and resistance. I stand before you as the first African-American woman elected to the legislature, a minority amongst the minority, but tomorrow, we will hit gender parity. We will have, hopefully, more women than we have ever had before, and that's because of the leadership of women like Senator Toni Atkins. So I thank you for your service and, more importantly, your leadership, and I respectfully ask for an aye vote. Thank you.
Senator Mangivar.
Thank you, Madam President. Colleagues, I rise today on behalf of the LGBTQ caucus in support of SR 57. Among the women we are honoring and recognizing this HERstory Month are the voices of queer women, many of whom are the reason the LGBTQ community have the rights we enjoy today. Women have been at the forefront of social justice movements since the inception of our country, specifically in the LGBT+ community fight for civil rights. In fact, our caucus was founded by 4 lesbian queer women. It was founded by Carol Migden, Sheila Kuehl, Jackie Goldberg, and Christine Kehoe. Other lesbians that have achieved so much for my right to exist here are as follows. Megan Rapinoe, who helped get gender parity for USA's women's soccer team. And in fact, just yesterday, I traveled to San Diego to see our Women's USA team get the Gold Cup for their first ever CONCACAF Gold Cup amongst North and South America. Billie Jean King made great strides for gender parity as well when it came to sports. Corinne Jean-Pierre is our president's press secretary right now. And Sally K. Ride, an astronaut who is from the San Fernando Valley, was one of the first lesbians, if not the first lesbian, to go into space. Audre Lorde, one of my favorite poets, a lesbian feminist, and Diane Niad, if you haven't, on Netflix, is her documentary where she broke the record of swimming 111 miles, swam from Cuba to Florida. These are but a few exceptional examples of the role women have, queer women have, and continue to make in the LGBTQ+ community. Women who pioneered gender-affirming care in the United States, queer women who cared for the members during the HIV and AIDS crisis. This body, in fact, will lose 2 lesbian trailblazers, the good senator from Stockton and our PT emeritus, 2 lesbian senators that I stand on today, and I hope that as we move forward, that this isn't the last year that this body will have 3 lesbian senators. We in the LGBTQ+ community are internally grateful to all the women who are helping to lead the way to a better tomorrow. And it's a personal point of privilege. In this month, for the first time as I can remember, there are 2 movies in the theaters right now that are lesbian themed. And it's so exciting to see that kind of representation in the media. So with that, I respectfully ask for your aye vote on SR 56.
Senator Bradford.
Thank you, Madam President. I, too, just want to rise in strong support of SR 56, primarily to say thank you. Thank you to all the amazing women that we're honoring here today, but more importantly, all the faceless and nameless women who work every day that go unrecognized. And I know I would not be standing here today if it wasn't for my mother, my grandmothers, my great-grandmothers who have instilled the confidence and courage to do what I needed to do growing up. So I say thank you to them. And to quote the late, great Margaret Thatcher, if you want something said, you ask a man. If you want something done, you ask a woman. Women are getting things done not only through California, but all across this country and all across this nation. I respectfully ask for aye vote.
Senator Alvarado Gil.
Thank you, Madam President. Today, I rise to shed light on an aspect of our society often neglected in the role of women. That's the role of women in agriculture. Agriculture forms the backbone of our civilization, providing the sustenance and nourishment to billions around the globe. And behind this vital sector are the tireless efforts of women who work on farms, in the fields, in households, ensuring that food security and economic stability for their families and communities. Despite their indispensable contributions, women in agriculture face numerous challenges and barriers, from limited access to land and financial resources to unequal opportunities for education and training. The hurdles that they encounter are manifold, and in many parts of our world, cultural norms and traditional gender roles further exacerbate these inequalities, relegating women to subordinate positions within the agricultural sector. Today, we can rise, and despite these challenges, we can celebrate women in agriculture. They demonstrate that remarkable resilience that so many women do, their resourcefulness and innovation. They're not merely passive participants, but active agents of change, driving agricultural productivity, sustainability, and food sovereignty. From adopting new technologies and farming practices to advocating for their rights and representation, women are at the forefront of shaping the future of agriculture. It's imperative that we recognize and support these invaluable contributions, and we empower these women in the sector that not only matters to social justice, but also for strategic imperative for achieving food security, poverty reduction, and sustainable development. We must invest in women's education, access to resources, and leadership opportunities to unlock the full potential of women in agriculture. Thank you for allowing me to support this initiative, and I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no further discussion or debate, Senator Skinner, you may conclude.
Thank you, Madam President. So as we first thank you, colleagues, for your comments, and as we celebrate the HERstory makers today and all of the women who have broken various glass ceilings and who had to, in doing so, as Ginger Rogers said, do everything Fred Astaire did, but backwards and in high heels. I ask you to make it easier for us to achieve our and all women and girls' rightful places, not only in the present, but in history. And with that, I ask for your aye vote.
Please call the roll.
Allen. Aye. Alvarado Gil. Aye. Archuleta. Aye. Ashby. Aye. Atkins. Aye. Becker. Aye. Blakespeare. Aye. Bradford. Aye. Caballero. Aye. Cortese. Aye. Daly. Aye. Dodd. Durazo. Aye. Eggman. Aye. Glazer. Aye. Gonzalez. Aye. Grove. Aye. Hurtado. Jones. Aye. Laird. Aye. Limon. Aye. McGuire. I, Menjivar. I, Min. I, Newman. I, Wen. I, Nilo. I, Ochoa Bog. I, Padilla. I, Portantino. I, Roth. I, Rubio. I, Sayarto. I, Skinner. I, Smallwood Cuevas. I, Stern. I, Umberg. I, Wahab. I, Wiener. I, Wilk. I.
Ayes 38, no 0. The resolution is adopted. Members, next we're going to go to celebrate and introduce our honored guests that we are recognizing today as part of our Women's HERstory ceremony.
Senator Tony G. Atkins, Senate President pro tempore emerita, escorted by Senators Ashby and Grove. Senator Tony G. Atkins made California legislative history when her colleagues elected her to be Speaker of the Assembly in 2014, the first San Diegan and first lesbian to hold the position. Elected to the state Senate in 2016, she was promptly chosen to lead the Senate when elected in 2018 as Senate President pro tempore, the first woman and first openly LGBTQ person to serve in that role. Senator Atkins holds the distinction of being the only woman, the first person in 150 years, and the third person in California history to serve as leaders of both houses in the legislature. Among the landmark legislation Senator Atkins authored was Senate Constitutional Amendment 10, the constitutional amendment that made abortion and contraception a fundamental right for all Californians. Prior to the legislature, Senator Atkins served as Clinic Services Director at the San Diego's Women Care Health Center, as an aide to former City Council member and Senator Christine Kehoe, and as a member of the San Diego City Council.
Members, just for your information, we'll be taking a group picture at the end. So for those of you that want to get in a picture, don't worry.
Nayeli Cobo Uriarte, Environmental Justice Champion, escorted by Senators Gonzalez and Durazo. Nayeli Cobo Uriarte began her activism at the age of 9 after experiencing health-related issues tied to pollution in her South Los Angeles community. She co-founded People Not Pozos, which aims to secure safe and healthy neighborhoods, and the South Central Youth Leadership Coalition, which focuses on environmental racism, to help mobilize her community against the disproportionate pollution burden present in their neighborhoods. Cobo Uriarte went door to door, held meetings and rallies, and spoke at city council meetings. As a result of these efforts, both the Los Angeles City Council and the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors took action to protect their community by enacting limits on oil drilling in residential neighborhoods. Her story and leadership led to Nayeli Cobo Uriarte being honored with the Goldman Environmental Prize in 2022. Mildred Garcia, Chancellor, California State University, escorted by Senators Wen and Eggman. A pioneering first-generation college graduate, Dr. Mildred Garcia is the first ever Latina to be named Chancellor of the California State University, the largest four-year public university system in the nation. As part of her distinguished career, Dr. Garcia served as president of Cal State Fullerton from 2012 to 2018, achieving record improvements in graduation rates. She also served as president of CSU Dominguez Hills from 2007 to 2012, the first Latina president of a CSU campus. During her tenure, she dramatically increased retention rates for freshmen and transfer students and eliminated a structural deficit. Prior to her appointment as CSU Chancellor, Dr. Garcia served as president of the American Association of State Colleges and Universities, making her the first Latina to lead one of the 6 presidentially based higher education associations in Washington, D.C. Patricia Guerrero, Chief Justice, California Supreme Court, escorted by Senators Wahab and Menjivar, a daughter of Mexican immigrants born and raised in the Imperial Valley. Patricia Guerrero made history as the first Latina named Chief Justice of California's Supreme Court. Prior to becoming Chief Justice, she served as an Associate Justice. In her first State of the Judiciary address, Chief Justice Guerrero highlighted her commitment to a more diverse and inclusive judicial branch. She is a champion of the Power of Democracy Civic Learning Initiative and has been active in the Judges in the Classroom Civics program. Among her many accolades are being named one of USA Today's 2023 Women of the Year, the 2022 Bernard E. Wicken Award for Excellence in the Adjudication of the Law, and the 2023 Justice Cruz Reynoso Community Service Award, Mexican American Bar Association. Christina House, award-winning photojournalist, escorted by Senators Blakespear and Limon. Growing up in Long Beach, Christina House found her love for photography when, as a child, she visited the Philippines, her mother's native country. This led to a degree in photography from Cal State Fullerton and 10 years as a freelance photographer. In 2017, House joined the staff of the Los Angeles Times as a photojournalist. Among her many awards, House won the 2023 Pulitzer Prize for Feature Photography and the 2022 Robert F. Kennedy Journalism Award for Domestic Photography for Hollywood's Finest, an intimate look at the life of a pregnant 22-year-old woman living on the street. In 2021, she received the Cliff Edom New America Award, and in 2021, National Press Photographers Association's Best of Photojournalism Award for her work on Game Changers, a celebration of women in sports. Jeanette Robinson Flint, founder, Black Women for Wellness, escorted by Senators Smallwood Cuevas and Rubio. In response to her own birthing experience, Jeanette Robinson Flint founded and serves as executive director of Black Women for Wellness, a reproductive justice organization committed to the health and well-being of Black women and girls. Under her leadership, the organization brings focus to racial disparities impacting maternal and infant morbidity and mortality, advances women-centered community-based care, and educates Black women and girls about the reproductive justice issues. Her work on Black maternal and infant mortality helped catalyze a national movement, resulting in national and state action to address the stark reality that Black women in America have more than 3 times higher risk of death related to pregnancy and childbirth than their white peers. Flint is also an active member of the California Coalition for Reproductive Freedom and In Our Own Voice, a national coalition of Black women advocating for reproductive justice. Maida Vang, award-winning poet, escorted by Senators Ochoa Bog and Alvarado Gil. Born in Fresno to Hmong refugees, Maida Vang's multiple award-winning poems and anthologies draw from community, family, nature, and astronomy. Her debut collection, Afterland, won her the prestigious 2017 Walt Whitman First Book Award from the Academy of American Poets. Released in 2022, Yellow Rain, her book of documentary, poetry, and collage, was awarded the Academy of American Poets Lenore Marshall Poetry Prize, the American Book Award, the Northern California Book Award, and placed Vang as a finalist for the 2022 Pulitzer Prize, positioning her among the top poets in the nation. Vang teaches in the Master of Fine Arts program in creative writing at Fresno State and holds a degree in English from UC Berkeley in addition to a Master of Fine Arts from Columbia University.
Members, now we're going to have the honorees take a picture, after which the Women's Caucus is invited to come forward, and then the third picture, everybody. So if you could recognize and celebrate these wonderful women that are the honorees for this year, HERstory. Now the Women's Caucus members.